The hulking Kazon regent held the human in his palm and laughed, as one might chuckle at a tiny kitten pawing at their fingers. But this kitten had fangs and claws the Kazon would soon come to fear. Christian Cook suppressed his fury as the towering alien leader Fenris plucked him off the ground, cradling him like an infant. The skilled human diplomat had traveled across the galaxy to the Kazon homeworld, tasked with forging peace between the two races. But the Kazon saw humans as frail, adorable pets, not equals to forge an alliance. "So small, so delicate," Fenris crooned, stroking Christian's hair. "Don't worry, little one. We'll take good care of you like the other cute species we've collected." Cook forced a diplomatic smile. He couldn't let the regent's condescension derail the mission. Trillions of human lives depended on him securing Kazon technology to cure a plague ravaging Earth. "I think you'll find we're stronger than we look," Christian said, keeping his voice level. "We've made many advancements in science and engineering, advancements we'd be happy to share with friends." The regent laughed, a booming sound that shook the chamber. "Your trinkets are toys compared to our might. Run along and play, Tiny. The adults are talking." As Fenris set Christian down and turned away, an explosion rocked the hall. Kazon radicals burst in, firing plasma rifles at the regent in a brazen coup attempt. The guards were cut down in seconds. Christian reacted with blinding speed, drawing a compact phaser cannon that had scanned as a harmless human bauble. He vaporized the attackers with lethally precise shots, then used their own fallen rifles to take out the rest. The smoke cleared to reveal Christian standing protectively in front of a cowering Fenris, not a scratch on him. The regent gaped in shock at the puny human who had just saved his life. "Cute, aren't I?" Christian said coldly, aiming the rifle at Fenris's head. "If we wanted you dead, you'd be a memory. Remember that when you deal with humanity." The regent swallowed hard, nodding slowly. In that moment, the dynamic shifted from condescension to fear. Some Kazon would seek to ally with the humans, seeing their hidden strength. Others would plot to eliminate the human threat. Christian knew his actions had just lit the fuse on a powder keg that could lead to war or peace. The survival of the human race hung in the balance. He smiled grimly, knowing this was far from over. The real negotiations were about to begin. In the days following the failed coup, Christian Cook wasted no time capitalizing on his elevated status among the Kazon. He met with Fenris and his top advisors, hammering out the details of a formal alliance between the Kazon Empire and the burgeoning Human Republic. Fenris, his perceptions of humanity fundamentally altered by Christian's heroics, engaged in the negotiations with a newfound respect and seriousness. They debated terms of trade, military cooperation, and cultural exchange, with Christian driving a hard bargain on behalf of Earth. As the talks progressed, however, a new threat emerged. Malachi, a ruthless Kazon warlord from a rival clan, saw Fenris's warming relations with the humans as a weakness to be exploited. He rallied his followers, denouncing Fenris as a traitor to Kazon tradition and vowing to seize power for himself. "Fenris has grown soft and weak, cozying up to these pitiful humans," Malachi roared to a crowd of loyal warriors. "I will lead the Kazon back to glory, back to our rightful place as the masters of the galaxy." With his forces mobilized, Malachi launched a blitzkrieg offensive against the Kazon homeworld, his armada of warships darkening the skies. Fenris, caught off guard by the sudden attack, found himself outnumbered and outgunned. In a tense meeting with Christian, Fenris swallowed his pride and asked for human assistance. "You've proven your strength, human. Now we need your help to overcome this threat to both our peoples." Christian, recognizing the opportunity to cement humanity's place as a valuable ally, immediately contacted Earth's leadership. He made an impassioned plea for military aid, arguing that supporting Fenris was crucial for the long-term stability of human-Kazon relations. The human government, trusting in Christian's judgment, dispatched a powerful fleet to reinforce Fenris's beleaguered forces. As the battle raged above the Kazon homeworld, the human ships unleashed a barrage of advanced weaponry, catching Malachi's warriors off guard. Seizing the initiative, Christian personally led a strike team onto Malachi's flagship. They battled their way through decks of heavily armed Kazon, Christian's lightning-fast reflexes and tactical genius winning the day. On the bridge, Christian confronted Malachi in hand-to-hand combat, the two leaders locked in a vicious duel. Christian's speed and skill proved decisive against Malachi's brute strength, and he soon had the warlord at his mercy. "Go ahead, human," Malachi spat. "Finish it." But Christian lowered his weapon. "No. Killing you now would only make you a martyr." He signaled for his team to take Malachi into custody. With their leader captured and their forces in disarray, Malachi's rebellion collapsed. Fenris, his rule secured, shocked everyone by proposing a true partnership between humanity and the Kazan, a joining of equals. In a solemn ceremony, Christian and Fenris signed the historic treaty, officially creating the Kazan-Human Alliance. As the alliance began to take shape, however, Christian couldn't shake a sense of unease. Many Kazan still resented human influence, seeing it as a threat to their way of life. Whispers began to reach Christian's ears of a hardline Kazan resistance quietly forming in the shadows. At the center of these whispers was Raxon, one of Malachi's most fanatical commanders. Raxon had escaped the battle on the Kazan homeworld and gone underground, biding his time and gathering support from those Kazan who longed for a return to the old ways. "We underestimated the human filth," Raxon growled to his inner circle. "But now we know their tricks. We'll turn brother against brother, destroy this unholy alliance, and put the Kazan back where we belong, at the apex of the galaxy." As he worked to build trust between human and Kazan, Christian knew that Raxon and his extremist faction represented an existential threat to the fragile peace. He vowed to root out this dangerous insurgency before it could plunge both species into a devastating conflict. The groundwork for an even greater war had been laid, and Christian Cook once again found himself on the front lines, determined to protect the alliance he had fought so hard to build. The ink on the alliance treaty had barely dried when the first cracks began to appear. Christian Cook paced the halls of the Kazan capital, his mind racing. Reports flowed in of Raxon's underground movement gaining traction. The extremist Kazan leader had vanished after the battle, but his influence lingered like a poison. Christian knew they needed a bold move to solidify the fragile peace. In a private meeting with Fenris, he laid out his plan. "A joint expedition," Christian said, gesturing to a star map. "Humans and Kazans working side by side to explore uncharted space. It'll show everyone what we can accomplish together." Fenris stroked his chin, considering. An intriguing proposal, but who would lead such a mission? "I'll go myself," Christian replied without hesitation, "to show our commitment." Fenris nodded slowly. "Very well. I'll send my most trusted general, Lekrak, to represent the Kazan." When Christian met Lekrak, the Kazan's eyes bored into him with barely concealed suspicion. "I'll be vetting every Kazan who steps foot on that ship," Lekrak growled. "Of course," Christian said smoothly. "We both want this mission to succeed." Weeks later, a gleaming hybrid vessel stood ready in the spaceport. Human and Kazan tech blended seamlessly, a physical representation of their fledgling alliance. As the crew boarded, the air crackled with tension and possibility. Christian took his place on the bridge beside Lekrak. "Ready to make history?" he asked. Lekrak grunted noncommittally as the ship lifted off. The first days were rough. Humans and Kazans eyed each other warily in the corridors. Arguments erupted over everything from food to engineering protocols. Christian worked tirelessly to smooth things over, but progress was slow. Then, after weeks of uneventful travel, sensors lit up. "Sir," a young human ensign called out, "we found something." On the console, a vibrant green and blue world spun slowly. Scans confirmed it was a lush, habitable planet teeming with life. "It's beautiful," Christian breathed. Lekrak leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "And unclaimed. This could be a great boon for the Empire." As they entered orbit, more detailed scans revealed primitive settlements scattered across the surface. "They're pre-warp," Christian said. "We can't interfere with their development." Lekrak scowled. Nonsense. We should make contact. Show them the glory of the Kazan Empire. Before Christian could argue further, alarms blared. A group of Kazan crew members had seized the shuttle bay, taking several aliens captive. What is the meaning of this? Lekrak roared as they stormed onto the bridge. Long live Raxon! One of the mutineers shouted, firing his weapon. Chaos erupted. Loyalists and traitors grappled for control as disruptor fire crisscrossed the bridge. Christian dove for cover, his mind racing. How had Raxon's people infiltrated the crew? A scream of pain cut through the din. Christian turned to see Lekrak collapse, a smoking hole in his chest. The Kazan general had taken a blast meant for Christian. With Lekrak down, the mutineers pressed their advantage. Christian knew he had to act fast or lose the ship. He vaulted over a console, snatching up a fallen disruptor. All loyal crew, fall back to engineering, he shouted into his comm badge. We're taking back this ship. What started as a mission of unity had become a desperate battle for survival. As Christian led the charge against Raxon's forces, he knew the fate of the entire human-Kazan alliance hung in the balance. Christian Cook crouched in the dense underbrush, sweat beading on his brow as he surveyed the alien landscape. The air hung thick with an unfamiliar scent, a mix of exotic flora and the acrid tang of recent plasma fire. His team huddled nearby, their faces etched with exhaustion and wariness. Status report, Christian whispered to his second-in-command. Not good, sir, Lieutenant Chen replied. We're down to half rations and Raxon's Kazan keep probing our defenses. The Trilok villages to the south are in flames. Christian nodded grimly. They needed allies fast. We move on the nearest Trilok settlement at dawn. Be ready for anything. As the twin suns crested the horizon, Christian led his team through a maze of towering purple fronds. They emerged into a clearing to find themselves face-to-face with a group of Trilok warriors, their skin a mottled green and eyes glowing with bioluminescence. The Trilok attacked without warning. Arrows whistled through the air as Christian's team scrambled for cover. Hold your fire, Christian shouted, dodging a spear that embedded itself in a nearby tree trunk. In the chaos, Christian managed to isolate one of the Trilok warriors. He tackled the alien, pinning him to the ground. The rest of the Trilok froze, weapons trained on the human commander. Christian pulled out a small device and held it to the struggling Trilok's throat. We mean you no harm, he said, the translator converting his words into a series of clicks and whistles. The Trilok's eyes widened in shock. How do you speak our tongue, Sky Demon? Christian helped the warrior to his feet, hands raised in a gesture of peace. We are not demons, but travelers from beyond the stars. We seek your help against a common enemy, the Kazan who burn your villages. The Trilok leader, adorned with intricate shell patterns, stepped forward. Why should we trust you, stranger? In response, Christian activated his phaser, vaporizing a boulder. The Trilok gasped in awe. Our technology can help defend your people, Christian explained. After tense negotiations, the Trilok ruler reluctantly agreed to an alliance. Christian's team set up camp near the village, trading their advanced knowledge for access to local resources. Human soldiers drilled alongside Trilok warriors, teaching them formation tactics and ambush techniques. But the peace remained fragile. Raxon's Kazan forces continued to raid outlying Trilok settlements, stoking fear and resentment. Christian knew they had to act decisively. Under cover of darkness, Christian deployed mixed squads of humans and Trilok scouts. They used stealth tech to map the Kazan base camp, identifying weak points and patrol patterns. When Raxon's lieutenants left to lead another raid, Christian saw his chance. Now, he signaled. Human and Trilok forces descended on the Kazan camp in a storm of gunfire and arrows. The element of surprise gave them the initial advantage, but the Kazan fought back fiercely. Christian led a team to secure the Kazan armory, knowing it was crucial to deprive Raxon of weapons and supplies. They fought room by room, the air thick with disruptor fire and the screams of the wounded. As Christian rounded a corner, he came face to face with Raxon himself. The Kazan leader's eyes blazed with hatred. You, Raxon snarled, lunging forward. The two commanders clashed in a brutal hand-to-hand struggle. Raxon's superior strength gave him the upper hand, and soon Christian found himself pinned, gasping for breath as Raxon's hands closed around his throat. Suddenly, a Trilok war cry split the air. The Trilok ruler himself charged into the fray, his ceremonial staff cracking against Raxon's skull. The Kazan leader stumbled back, blood trickling down his face. "This isn't over," Raxon growled, before retreating with a handful of loyalists into the dense jungle. In the aftermath of the battle, Christian tended to the wounded, both human and Trilok. The Kazan camp was theirs, but the victory had come at a steep cost. As he worked, he noticed the Trilok watching the human medics with a mix of fear and fascination. When the Trilok ruler fell ill days later, Christian's team used their advanced medicine to save his life. The ruler's eyes gleamed with a dangerous hunger as he recovered. "You must share these miracles with us," he demanded. Christian tried to explain the complexities of their technology, but the Trilok grew increasingly agitated. Whispers of resentment spread through the village. Some Trilok embraced the human allies, while others called for their expulsion or worse. As night fell, Christian gathered his team. They faced an impossible choice: stay and risk destruction at the hands of their increasingly hostile allies, or abandon the Trilok to Raxon's vengeance. And somewhere out in the alien wilderness, Raxon and his loyalists were regrouping, plotting their next move. Christian stared up at the unfamiliar stars, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. Whatever choice he made, the consequences would reshape the fate of this world and the future of human-Kazan relations. The real test of leadership was just beginning. Christian Cook's fingers tightened around the edge of the console, his squeezing hard as he surveyed the chaos unfolding before him. The Trilok village burned in the distance, angry shouts and disruptor fire piercing the night air. He turned to his team, their faces etched with exhaustion and fear. "We have no choice," Christian said, his voice low and firm. "We're leaving, now." Lieutenant Chen nodded grimly, hefting his rifle. "What about the Trilok, sir?" Christian's expression resolute. "We can't help them anymore. Our priority is getting off this rock and warning the Alliance." They moved swiftly through the underbrush, the humid air clinging to their skin. Ahead, the sleek form of the Kazan ship loomed in the darkness, its hull still scarred from the earlier battle. As they approached, a dozen Trilok warriors burst from the foliage, eyes glowing with rage. "Sky demons!" one shrieked, launching a barrage of arrows. "Take cover!" Christian shouted, diving behind a fallen tree. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as his team returned fire. Chen fell back, clutching his arm where an arrow had found its mark. "We're pinned down, sir!" Christian's mind raced. They needed a diversion. His eyes locked onto the ship's engine housing. "Cover me!" he yelled, sprinting towards the vessel. Disruptor fire scorched the ground at his heels as Christian reached the access panel. His fingers flew over the controls, overriding safety protocols and initiating an emergency core dump. A deafening roar filled the air as superheated plasma vented from the ship's engines. The Trilok scattered, their screams lost in the din. "Now's our chance," Christian shouted. "To the bridge!" They fought their way through the ship's corridors, dispatching the skeleton Kazan crew with ruthless efficiency. Bodies littered the floor as they secured the bridge. "Get us airborne," Christian ordered, strapping himself into the command chair. The ship lurched violently as it lifted off, flames licking at its hull. Through the view screen, Christian watched the alien world recede, a mix of relief and guilt churning in his gut. Their respite was short-lived. As they cleared the atmosphere, proximity alarms blared. A sleek fighter decloaked off their port bow, its weapons already charging. "Raxon," Christian growled, recognizing the ship's design. The bridge rocked as laser fire pummeled their shields. Sparks flew from overloading consoles, acrid smoke filling the air. Christian's hands flew over the weapons controls. "Let's see how you like this, you Kazan bastard." Plasma bolts streaked across the void as the two ships danced a deadly waltz among the stars. Christian's vessel shuddered with each hit, its experimental systems pushed beyond their limits. A lucky shot from Raxon's fighter breached their primary coolant line. Flames erupted across the bridge as Christian lined up his final attack run. "This ends now," he snarled, thumb hovering over the trigger. In that split second, Raxon struck. A barrage of laser fire tore through the weakened hull, venting atmosphere into the void. Christian watched in horror as his crew was sucked into the deadly vacuum, their screams silenced in an instant. Shrapnel tore into Christian's body, blood seeping from a dozen wounds. His vision blurred as he struggled to maintain consciousness, fingers fumbling for the weapon's controls. With the last of his strength, Christian fired. The plasma burst lanced out, catching Raxon's fighter dead center. The Kazan ship exploded in a brilliant fireball, illuminating the bridge in stark relief. Alarms blared as the ship began to break apart around him. Christian dragged himself to the communications array, each movement sending waves of agony through his battered body. "This is Christian Cook," he rasped, blood flecking his lips. "Raxon is dead, but his movement grows. The Alliance must act now, or all will be lost. Humanity will not go quietly into the night. We will fight. We will—" The transmission cut off as the bridge imploded, Christian's broken body lost to the unforgiving void of space. On the alien world below, Raxon's surviving troops surveyed the devastation. The once vibrant Trilok villages lay in ruins, casualties of a war they never asked to join. A Kazan sergeant sneered at the destruction. "See what the humans have wrought? They claim to seek peace, yet leave only death in their wake." His commander nodded, eyes blazing with newfound zeal. Raxon was right. The galaxy will never be safe until humanity is wiped from existence. We will carry on his noble cause. As the Kazan gathered their forces, preparing to spread their message of hate across the stars, the seeds of a greater conflict had been sown. What began as a mission of unity would now spark a war that would engulf entire worlds, forever changing the face of the galaxy.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.